Jumpei and I met a few months ago at a real estate conference, and it was the last session of the conference for me, I think for both of us. I sat next to you, and immediately I just had this sense, I could just feel, I don't know, you just have a spectacular aura or vibe about you. And I think as we were leaving, we said hello and talked about you being from Japan. And then from there, it was just very obvious, your peace and calm that resonates from you. And you are very open about sharing some of your story as a young person growing up in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was overwhelmed by your kindness and really your openness, your authentic way of being. So I keep telling Andrew, I'm like, he's just so special. He's
Oh, you're so
special.
sweet. Takes one to know one. So I love it. Thank you.
Love for you to share some of what you shared at that time too, just growing up in Japan and some of the things that you've come to see differently and heal through as an adult.
Mm. Okay, that's a
It's a
big
big one.
one too. Yeah, I know.
We'll just start and chunk it out.
Well, I haven't told Andrea about my story. So
Yeah.
I I was born and raised in Japan, in Osaka, Japan, and I grew up in a real estate family. Actually, my father did real estate. He still does real estate investment side, and so I grew up fairly like well, upper middle class. Had we do international trips every year, and yeah, I had a pretty good life, I would say. He was driving Mercedes and just all this stuff. Um, and around the age of 10, my parents started fighting, and things aren't looking so good. And one day, my mom took my brother and I to we're coming back from my grandma's house, and we weren't going home straight. And so after like an hour or so, I'm like, "Where are we going, mom?" And she goes, "I am separating from your father." And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I was, notified, and I just sobbed and sobbed, cried for hours. I don't stop when I started crying. I can't stop. So I was just sobbing. And so soon after that, my mom left, and uh, but I felt kind of like being responsible to stay with my father instead of going with my mom. So I said I'm just gonna stay with my dad, and my brother left with my mom. So we kind of separated in two ways, and myself and my dad, and my mom and my brother, and during that time, I was telling Amy that my mom's side of grandma, so my mom's mom, felt very like shameful that her daughter is misbehaving and she's not coming home to take care of her husband. So what happened was my grandma, she lives in a different province. She came to my dad's house every single day to clean, to cook, to do everything that her daughter is supposed to be doing as a wife.
And that's such an interesting thing about Japanese culture. I think shame and sense of duty it's different. We have such a different experience of those roles and expectations here. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
I don't know if Andrew's familiar with that, but it's so different.
I would like to get back, but I want to do it later. Get back to the shame and the impact that it had on you if you could look back. But let's finish up with your story.
Yeah,
I'm old and I lose my sense of memory, so I may not come back to it. So if I don't, I'm going to come back to it.
We'll put a pin in it for you.
Thank you.
And so during that time, my brother was living with my mom, and my mom had like 3 jobs, tried to get the things going, right, like life going for her, because now she doesn't have anybody that's bringing in an income. And during that time, my brother was actually living off of like microwave food and like living, he felt very lonely, and he felt kind of like I abandoned him. I didn't go with him or with her. I just said I'm gonna stay with my dad. And so that story will come, that will tie together later on.
Okay.
But he was kind of, collecting and then gathering his resentment towards me.
Yeah.
Is he older or younger?
He's 3 years older than me.
Okay.
He feels
He
like
was 3
you
years.
abandoned him, is what you said.
Exactly.
Got it.
I betrayed him. Him and then our mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and he's a big guy. He was playing rugby, and he's always just he's kind of overweight. He loves eating McDonald's, and he's just like a bigger guy, bigger frame. And I'm just tiny little, I was always like a skinny one. And so after 6 months, I looked to my dad, and then my mom came to pick me up out of nowhere. And she took me, and because she moved closer to my dad's house so that I would be willing to move there. And I moved in, and that's when literally like my nightmare started, which was a domestic violence relationship with my brother. And as soon as I got there, my brother was, "What are you doing here?" And I go, "What do you mean what I'm doing here? You know exactly what I'm doing here. My, it's my mom just came to pick me up." And so my mom was still working 3 jobs at a time. She was, she never comes home. But my brother just started like really being violent towards me. And it was accelerated very quickly. And it was very difficult even being in the house. From the house, I had a like 4-story home to like 1 by 1 bath in a tiny condo. And everything is unfamiliar, a new neighborhood, and then living this carpeted, not a desirable apartment building. Like that life quality is very different. And now my brother is very, very abusive towards me. So where I felt most comfortable was in a toilet, like in the bathroom. But Japan, we have bathroom and a toilet separately. So bathroom is where you take a bath, and but toilet is where just toilet.
Yeah.
It's separate. So, but that place was completely secluded. It's closed environment,
You were
and
safe.
I felt safe, right? So I did my homework there. I ate there. I was there. I just was so afraid of coming out of toilet, because when I do, then he's gonna grab my hair and then like throws me on the wall, or like punch me, and he doesn't punch places that he shows in public, right? So he like kicked me on my stomach, or like, and he's a big guy. I've been thrown. I don't know if you have had experience of being thrown to the wall, like
No.
like a little object. Your body like literally shuts off.
Wow.
Like everything in your body is in shock, because you're like just so much, like it doesn't happen often, right? Like being thrown on the wall. So like your body it literally shuts off, and you're on the ground, and you get this like trying to breathe, and that led me to have more panic attack, because when I'm in that place, I'm like, right? So I'm trying to catch breath, and every time after a couple of years, that happened for like almost 3 years. He was beating me every day for like almost 3 years. And he sometimes used chairs. He sometimes used anything to just beat me up. And it was rough. And, as, probably like last part of my experience with him was actually holding a knife when I go to sleep.
Wow.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
he could come get me at any time.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's either he's gonna end my life, or I'm gonna end his life.
Oh my goodness. Did you share this with anyone at that time?
No. Mm-mm. Not really. But, in Japan, it's, I think Amy knows a little bit more, but like being a part of a family that is divorced, or, like single mom family, it's not really respected. So a lot of kids that had a single mom came to my house to hang out.
Mm.
So there were like about 10, 15 kids the whole time, like smoking cigarettes and playing video games and doing like whatever, because there's no, supervisor.
Right.
So it was very wild childhood that I don't think a lot of Japanese people would experience, because Japan's it's pretty established country, and then you can definitely ask for more. I don't know if you can get grants from the government or support system, but I just my mom didn't know, and I had no idea, so I just lived with it.
Why did
That's kind of like. Mhm.
Why didn't you tell anyone?
Well, when you're a kid, that's all you know.
Mm.
You don't know any better. So like, even when it's not something that, even if I shared with somebody, I don't know if I was able to help.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
You
That makes
know,
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Especially
I
if
didn't
you've
even.
got that sense of shame, not necessarily for you, but the whole cultural piece of that shame.
Yeah.
It wouldn't feel safe, I wouldn't imagine, to be able
Hmm.
to share anything of what's going on because you're going to endure more shame. At least that's what you would
I
anticipate, I
think
would
it
think.
was shame for like not for me, but towards my mom. I think I wanted to
Hmm.
respect my mom. So if I
Yeah.
did speak up, then probably I'm, we say muddying people's face.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
that could happen. I don't know exactly how my thought process was as a,
Sure. Yeah.
10,
Yeah.
11 years old.
Oh my goodness. That's
And
a lot. I can't even imagine. Then that ended at some point because you went to school. Did you move?
um, no, this is like a whole, I'm going to share the whole story if you don't mind.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I, I actually, so in Japan, I had a cell phone when I was 11, I think.
Uh,
We already had social media, and I met somebody on social media, and I left that day.
really?
And
Hmm.
how old were you at this point?
14.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
You were
gosh.
young. You were
I didn't tell
young.
anybody. I just because whether I'm gonna be killed or
Yeah.
I'm moving along,
Mm-hmm.
So I actually moved in with this person right away. The day I met
Wow.
the person, I just moved in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you didn't tell anybody?
Mm-mm.
Did they come looking for you?
My mom was freaking out,
Yeah.
um, and my friends, because we had a mutual friend with that person that I went to live with.
Okay.
So she finally found out where I was,
Oh.
and I came back after like a month and a half or 2 months, completely like disappeared from the
Wow.
face of the earth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from your
Hmm.
parents' point of view, it was like you ran away.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't think she knew exactly what was happening
Yeah.
because that domestic violence stuff never happened before my mom's eyes.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
Wow.
I don't know if she even felt like it was such a big deal. I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't even ask that question.
So when you went
Yeah.
back to your mom's house or to your dad's house, and then,
No,
oh,
I met this person on social media, and I lived with him, and he was 31, and he became like my mentor
mm,
because at that time my mom spoke really poorly of my dad, so I didn't feel like I should be spending time with my dad because that's just how it is.
mm-hmm.
So I felt guilty spending time with my dad, and I didn't know anybody that I can follow as a male figure.
Right.
And so this person, he was 31 at the time, was like he became my mentor, and it became my male figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him working really hard. So after I came back from that trip, um, I got a job in a restaurant.
Wow. As a teenager, as a young person.
I was 14. Yeah.
Oh, so you never went back home again. You lived on your own.
I went back home, but I got job. So
Oh,
I
okay.
was always, I go to school
Yeah.
and then job, school and job. And then I think at the end of the year, I had like 3 different jobs,
Ah,
Anything to
like
keep you away from being
currently,
home.
right? And then also making money because
Yeah.
I knew at the time, if I'm the one who's earning money, then I can kick him out if I want to.
That's pretty insightful.
Yeah. So if I'm the provider,
Yeah.
then they can't mess with me. You know, he can't not mess up with me. So I just earned.
Hmm.
wow.
Mhm.
That's how you
It's a
develop
lot of
this amazing
pressure.
work ethic.
Yeah, I don't mind working. I have a lot of, yeah, I can don't stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So did that all the violence end when you went back?
Yes, because I basically told him like, whether we're gonna keep this relationship, or and we won't have. And then we were very poor, like we were very very poor, like till I left home, like electricity shuts off, gas shuts off, like
Mm.
water shuts off. The landlord comes and like lock up the place. We have all the stuff inside the house. We can't get into our apartment. Um, it wasn't like something that you would experience as a normal Japanese person.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so, one day you're on the street, like, and they put a lock that is 4 digits. You go from zero
Yeah.
zero 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 to 0001 to 0002. You like
Trying to
keep
get in.
try to get in, yeah. And I have to sometimes. I'm so hungry, like I go shoplifting,
Oh my gosh.
and
Yeah.
I get caught, and I'm like, this is my situation. Like, what are you gonna do about it?
What a
Wow.
difference. I mean, it seems like it was almost overnight for
Mm-hmm.
you to go from what appeared probably in your mind as a very stable, typical childhood, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then overnight you're now thrown into a world that is so different than what
Mm.
you've
Right.
ever experienced. It had to have been terrifying.
Hmm.
Yeah. And for a child, I would think that would translate to a feeling of I'm not safe. I don't know where
Right.
my foundation is and what I can lean on.
Hmm. Yes, correct. Yeah.
What
And
made you go from your
mhm,
dad's place to your mom's? Because you were with him initially, and then you
right.
decided to go live with your mom, which was very different than what you were, from a living standpoint, very different than what you were experiencing at your dad's
Mhm.
place.
No, it wasn't really my choice. She
Got it.
literally appeared at the front door and picked me up,
Mm.
Got it.
and then took me to her apartment.
Got it.
Hmm.
Wow. And at this time in in Japan, would you have sought out a therapist? Would that have been something available to you? I'm just curious. Like, would other kids have had an adult helping or monitoring them in that way?
Probably not. And I don't think it's a culture that embraces therapy per
Hmm.
se.
Oh, still?
Um,
Really?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No,
So
therapy is not a
private.
thing. Right,
Wow.
correct. You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that there was at the time. I just didn't even think about like,
Hmm.
approaching to somebody or adult to help me.
Yeah. Wow.
Hmm.
And you're so open now, and you're so authentic with your story.
Hmm.
It's interesting to see the coming from where your foundation was, that this
Hmm.
isn't talked about. This isn't what we do. That you're now just so, again, authentic with your story. It's impressive.
Hmm. I think I came to realization that, I'm gonna go into like my grandma, which was, she's an energy healer and then all that background. But I always thought it was just, I have to go through it, you know, and not in the negative sense. So even that time when I was like really going through craziness, I didn't think I was the poor one. I always thought my brother was a poor one.
Really?
And yeah, and the way it might be, I don't know if I told you this story to Amy, but when I was probably like 9 or 10, I was, doing what is it called? Like after class, right? I was
Yeah.
taking this extra curriculum, and this girl, I don't know, she stood up and she went in front of the room and she sharpened her pencil. She came in front of me and it stuck my hand
Oh,
out of nowhere.
oh
And
my
then
God.
here I am, like looking at my hand, like it's sticking up, and I'm like looking at her
What
and
the
looking at my
heck?
like pencil and like, what is going on? And I don't remember anything aside from like crying really a lot.
Mhm.
And I saw my mom like magically after, because I think I kind of like lost that part of memory because it was so
Like you
painful.
blacked out.
And next thing I realized was like my mom rushing into the classroom and it saw me and it saw her and it went straight to that girl and it go, "Are you okay? Like what's
She
going
asked
on?"
the girl if she was
Right,
okay.
right.
Oh.
Interesting.
And to me, I was very hurt that moment
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, here is my hero, came to save me and didn't even, like, she glanced over me, but went straight to that girl and like, tell me what's going on. What is going on in your life? And so that I always kind of knew subconsciously the one who hurts the most needs most love,
Hmm.
right?
Wow.
So even when I was getting hurt, I knew my brother needed it most help. It wasn't me because I had enough love.
That is an amazing
Mm-hmm.
perspective for a young person. And
Yeah,
and it's beautiful that you can pinpoint a moment as a child when you were taught that from your
right.
mother.
Hmm.
When
Yeah,
we hear stories a lot, Emmy and I do, obviously of parents that have children that are struggling with their mental health. And a lot of times, because their brains aren't fully developed, they don't understand what's going on. They act in such um, inappropriate ways, right? They
Mm.
have tantrums, or they lash out or whatever. And I think that what you just said, with those who hurt the most are the ones that need the most love. And I
hmm,
think that's just an amazing thing that should be imprinted on everybody's mind, because we just
mm,
don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Um,
It is
and I think the
interesting.
natural thing, yeah, that's a beautiful perspective, and interesting that you remember that moment and are able to
Hmm.
translate that into your, I don't know,
Yeah.
thoughts of today.
Hmm.
We're gonna put that on our
And
t-shirt.
but looking back, honestly, like it really um, gave me. It's not just a tough scheme, but like appreciation for what I'm already have now.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from where I was in the past to where I am today.
Mhm.
Um, that's probably one of the reasons why I don't feel like homesick and like I don't miss Japan going. I want to go back or anything like that. That a lot of my friends did. They just couldn't, adjust themselves for this new culture and things. But I always made myself home. I was the home instead of the place. Um, so just looking back, like overall, everything that happened was supposed to happen. And then nowadays, I don't call it like challenges, like what darkness or negative, incidents. I just call it a medicine.
Mm.
It's the medicine that Steve Jobs says this. He goes, apparently the patient needed it, you know,
Mm.
and that's how I feel it. Like I didn't want to take it, but it was bitter experience for me. But I needed for me to grow as a person and then spiritually. So I'm very grateful for my brother.
Really? Yeah. He's your teacher now.
Yeah. Hmm.
Did you have anybody um, talking to you about this concept when you were younger? Because it just seems amazing to me that such a young person knew this. And maybe it's just innate something. There are different people that come out as survivors on things, and it goes back to perspective. And Was anybody coaching you along the lines, or was this just really something that you just figured out? Because I know people do figure it out.
No, I think that's where my grandma comes in.
Okay.
Um, so both of my parents are entrepreneurs. Uh, whether my mom wasn't really successful at it, but she kept trying, right? So they were never home. And then my brother was older, so he had his friends and like, his club and things. But I I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and who is like she's never had a job, I don't think. She just was always
A healer.
a healer, energy
Mm.
healer.
Can you share what that is? Because I know you've said it a few times, and I'm not sure that a lot of people know what that is.
Right. Energy healer, it's pretty common in Japan. It is mm, it's very difficult to grasp for people that is very scientific based, right? Probably, but it's a modality that you actually. So this is what my grandma does. My grandma goes to someone's house or hospital and then does singing and then prayer, and she basically hovers her hand over people's body that's hurting, and she heals it. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of placebo effect that
Mm.
takes place, but also you can actually even your eyes closed, you can see her hands like hovering certain part of your body. You feel
Mm.
like warmth. You feel like a little like sticky energy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what she does. And that's what her mom did, and that's what her grandparents did. Uh, that's what she knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I was too. So just spending time with my grandma, just holding her hand and
Mm-hmm.
trying many trains to go to different places, hospitals and people's houses, and she does that, and we go home.
Wow.
And so that was.
Is it
Mhm.
Reiki? Does she do Reiki? Would you say
It's
it's
very close to
oh,
Reiki.
okay.
Yeah, you can just call it Reiki. I
Okay.
think it's very similar practice.
Wow. I wish she were
Mhm.
here too.
I know, and her messaging is very simple. Um, like she goes, "Sekai ichiritsu mina kyodai" means the world is all brothers and sisters,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and she has so many like bits and pieces of like wisdom every single time I talk to her, right?
Mm.
So the way she raised me was that like I just was in her presence. And I think even when I was going through a hard time, like I knew my programming was already set in so strong, like in such a way that I'm not the one who's hurting. If anything, I'm like the healer. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
think about it though at a time, but I'm like, yeah, this is what my brother have to go through, and I have to go through with him because I'm his brother.
Yeah. So she was your light
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
teacher. Wow.
Hmm.
What an amazing balance of an opposite, right? That on one hand you go home and your brother's beating you, but
Hmm.
then at the end of the day you can end up with your grandmother who's light and wisdom and healing.
Right, right. Yeah. I didn't see her that during the time though.
Oh,
I think
really?
mm-mm, I think around the age like 11 to 14, I just was so, uh, I think I was hurt. And I think I kept with everything within myself, and I didn't even want to see my dad or my grandma or anything like that. And I just acted like I'm a cool kid.
Mm.
I didn't even really go to school, like middle school. Like I thought it was kind of meh. Like I don't belong there.
You
All these
didn't
kids
go?
are having. I didn't really go when I was in the. I don't know what the grade is in equivalent to this country, but probably like eighth grade or something.
Yeah.
I really didn't go to school because I just didn't see any point in I hanging out with all the friends that have their life together.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was this black sheep that has a really like poor family, and like, and dealing with my brother. It's just like it was a lot for me. I didn't really go.
Yeah. Ah.
So you see the turning point then is when you left for that month and a half, you kind of readjusted your thinking and then came home and just started working. Would that be the time that you think that you had the turning point?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the whole story. I met the person in social media. So I went to hang out with him, and he was 31 at the time. I felt so much respect towards him. He had a very successful company. He had a bunch of employees, and he introduced me as his son because we have 18 years difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I felt like I was under someone's like this big guy's wing, you know, and the wind, yeah, yeah. And then I felt like I was very taken care of. So I felt very proud to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah. I think that's like the whole I like experience on its own for me to go therapy, right? To like uncover like what I was actually happening at the moment.
yeah.
But anything was better than like living in a house with my brother that's
Yeah.
abusive.
Yeah.
And here is this guy, he's super gentleman. He like gives me safe shelter and food. His parents are so sweet to me. Um, and I feel very safe and taken care of.
So you
Wow.
mentioned therapy. Did you do therapy in Japan at all, or did you do it once you got to the States?
I have not done any therapy
Oh,
till
you
this
haven't.
moment.
Oh, I thought you just said something about therapy.
I did, but I haven't gotten into therapy.
It's your own therapy, your self therapy.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
I do meditation a lot. And then during meditation, I feel like I'm the own therapist.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that? When did you start meditating? And how did you develop that practice?
So, it's okay. Okay. So sorry, I'm usually the one who's asking all the questions, and then like you know what I mean? I'm a salesperson, so I'm always asking questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to talk this much. Like I need to sip my tea real quick. um, I moved to the US when I was 18, and I'm 31, so it was 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was, if you're going to university anywhere in the world, I'll pay for it. So I said, okay. And I came to San Diego. And
Nice
for the
choice.
first time, thank you. For the first time, because you remember from 14 to like 18, the day I left Japan, I worked my butt off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was always working. And for the first time, I moved here and then never have to worry about money
Mm.
because
Was your
my
dad?
dad gave me took care of me. And it was the weirdest feeling because I didn't know what a, $1 means, you know, in Japanese yen.
Yeah.
And then I'm not paying for it. So I felt very humble. Like I shouldn't be spending even a penny. So I just kept going to 7-Eleven to eat hot dogs because it was $1, you know. I go to, and I didn't have any technology like iPhone or anything like that. So I took a trolley from where I used to live in the dorm to Fashion Valley, where is the closest shopping mall
Yeah.
is with like Apple. And I went to Apple. I changed the iPhone like language to Japanese, and I log into my Gmail and I tell my parents like, "Hey, I'm here in San Diego. I'm
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Different
I
time.
did I roughed it, you know. Um, but anyways, I because of my childhood being so like rough and challenging,
Mm.
I didn't really have time to explore who I am or what I'm interested in or any of that stuff. I was just working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was I and I moved here. Now I don't have to work at all. I'm just studying English. You know, I'm in English school with a bunch of rich kids, and and it was just like it was like I'm not dreaming. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
what is this? Like I'm living
You've,
close to the water. Like
Right.
what is this whole thing?
yeah.
And I was just extremely happy. I'm a happy person in general, but I was just like like clean the bathroom. Yes, I'll clean the bathroom. You know, like I'm happy to, you know, I'll do it right now, you know. And then my roommate at the time, she's like, and not just her, but like all the people kept asking me like, how you stay so happy? And I just didn't know the answer to that. And I was getting asked so often that I'm like, is that weird to be happy? Like, what is this? You know, like, should I not be happy? Like, and when I went to college at age 19, my teacher, I took a yoga class as an elective.
Oh, nice.
And my teacher, Jennifer DeMarco, she was, I think, first day or second day of class, she stood up on the mat and she like did this thing and she started chanting Bande Gurunam Chanaramente, and she was like Ashtanga yogi, and that was like lighting to me. I was like, wow, like this is what I want to do. And I became a huge yogi after. I just did a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation. I went vegan after because, you know, I just felt a lot of distraction when I'm eating meat. And I also loved traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So I traveled around the world. I probably went to close to 40 countries, most of
Wow.
which I hitchhiked.
Oh my gosh.
And
You've lived 5, 6 lives already, it seems like.
I was going to say, are you going to write a book one day?
I think yes.
Yeah. And, you know, I got to experience many places through yoga and hitchhiking, that there's more than what we see and what we know as life. You know, there's something greater.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's when I was really awakening as a spiritual being. And after a couple of years of, not a couple of years, but like, yeah, probably good 5, 7 years of yoga practice of yoga and meditation, I did Vipassana, which is silent meditation. I did in Thailand. I stayed in a monastery for about 20 days and absolutely no communication with humans, like no phones, no eye contact, no singing, no writing, you can't talk, you can't express any communication towards
Wow.
anybody.
No eye contact. I've never heard
No,
that. I've heard of silent
no,
retreats and things, but
no,
wow.
absolutely no eye contact, no journaling, nothing. You just sit with your thoughts. That's it.
Okay,
So
tell me about that
Yeah.
because I don't know if I'd want to sit with my thoughts. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's challenging for a lot of people. People sign up for a week or, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. People just can't stay. They just literally go nuts.
So what do you do? Do you just eat and sit?
They'll feed you 7 a.m. and 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the day, you just meditate.
Oh, so also kind of a fasting experience then.
Well, I guess intermediate
Wouldn't that be
fasting, you can
intermittent?
say.
Yeah.
Right.
Do they teach you how to do this, or do you come in already prepared, knowing how you're going to?
They teach you. They
Okay.
teach you, but knowing your style and meditation practice already, you know, part of your like routine definitely
Right.
helps. So for me, they did taught us, which I also teach meditation every Monday to realtors, and I use that technique to people. I teach those things that I learned from the monks.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly just you sit, or you sometimes you also do walking meditation, like
Yeah.
walk so slowly. Every step is a conscious step, and you feel every single edge and corner of the sole of your feet touching the floor. And, you know, that's
Mm-hmm.
also part of meditation. It's mindfulness. So I think for me was not knowing who I am and not being able to explore who I am as a child.
Mm-hmm.
That took me to this like spiritual path to yoga and meditation. And that's when I finally realized the magic and the importance of what my grandma does.
Right.
because that's something that my grandma did, and of course I did, because as soon as I turned like 17 or 18, she took me to her shrine every month for the training. So but I didn't really see the value as a kid,
Right.
and now wow, this is what my grandma does. And so I feel very connected very quickly.
So the
What do
place
you-
that you went
Right.
to, is that something Andrew and I could literally do? It's for just regular people?
Vipassana, you can,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yes, Vipassana can happen anywhere. It's happening in the US. It's happening where I did it in Thailand. I did it in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Oh.
You can go, and it's donation based, so you can just show up and just going to the mall. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think you learned when you were there? I mean, that's a long time to be there.
You know what I've done, that's one of the practices and experiences that I had, and every time I go to retreat, every time I go hide in the woods, every time I do any of this stuff, I think it really, really comes down to mindfulness and present moment.
What does that
So
mean
you're-
to you? Like, how would you explain that to
Yes.
an average
So
person?
if you think about the word present, right? The present moment. Present, it literally means a gift, right? So I don't know what the Latin version of what is that denotation of it, but present literally means, to me, it's a gift, right? It's a gift moment, and for you to be able to tap into that, you need to be in the present moment, which is now. Right now, right here, nothing else. You are not mother, you're not father, you are not a child, you're not a realtor, you're not this and that. You are just human being as a spirit experiencing human experiences. That's it. You are just there and here. And to me, the reason why I love teaching meditation is because people are so in having all this childhood drama that happened to me too. Like, I didn't have access to present moment because I was constantly stressed. I was constantly worried about my safety. I was constantly worried about where I can get money from, food from, shelter from. I'm always in survival mode. And I didn't even think about, okay, let's drop everything and just sit down and be in present moment. No, I can't afford that, And I think a lot of people, us and myself included, get caught up in this day to day, and we are so good at being human doing, and we are terrible at being human being.
Yeah.
And one breath at a time, just one layer at a time, let's come back to the present moment. And that's what I learned from Vipassana, from all the retreat. I held a retreat before myself. Anything I do, any practice I do, I come back to the present moment. It's nothing really uh, the magic pill or shortcut to anything. It's just very basic, like right here, right now, this present gift moment. Let's come back to this moment.
When you're in the present moment and you're using that intentionally, let's say you're in the middle of a stressful situation and you are sitting still or breathing, very mindful of the moment, what do you think has shifted in you?
I think when you are in a very stressful moment, what you see is a tree that's standing in front of you, right? But when you are in the present moment, and when you're so mindful of your thoughts, of your emotion, and what's really happening, what you can control, what you can't control, you can actually see in a broader perspective. In other words, you're looking down on the forest, right? So you're not looking up the tree, but you're looking down on the forest. You can actually guide yourself through that quite easily, because you're not like caught up in this stress. And and especially when you're stressed, a lot of people come from scarcity mindset, which I also teach people about. You really can't provide other people, you can't really help other people unless you help yourself.
Yeah.
So to me, when I meditate, even I'm in real estate, I'm battling with stress all the time.
Yes.
I sit down, I sit my butt down on the floor, and I meditate. And it can be sports, it can be listening to music, it can be a different modality for different people. For me, works best when I'm either sitting on the floor meditating or jumping in ocean.
So it's also, a distraction and a separation from the current context and thoughts, a broader perspective.
Emmy, if I would have known this or this was around 10 years ago when we were going through our stressful situations here at home. I think it would have been a gift, back to your terminology, given to myself, because I would get so caught up in what's going to happen, things that I could never control. What's it going to be like in 10 years? What's it going to be like next year? Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And to be able to sit down and just focus on the moment is huge in, I think, a parent in helping themselves and their child, and realizing that the world's going to be messy.
Yeah.
You can't control it. Focus on the now. What can you control now? And you can
Right.
control how you think.
Right. Absolutely. And then one thing that, you mentioned about child, and I think I shared this with Amy, but I personally want to, and I think I will eventually create a space for teenager to gather or feel safe or have a mentor or a place to go to. And, as a child, you look up your parents like a perfect figure, right? So to me, I thought my parents are perfect. They're just like, they can't be more perfect than they are. And so seeing them falling apart was hard. And for my parents to be my age now and acting like a perfect parents and not being transparent with their child because they need to have certain image of parents to their child was hurting me, because I wish my father was being more transparent, honest with me about what was happening. I wish my mother was being transparent with me. I told this story to Amy, but one time I was meditating during COVID. I felt very lonely. And I felt loneliness for the first time in years, which is very rare to say. But because I suppressed that emotion so hard not to feel it, like loneliness wasn't in my dictionary, because you can't afford to feel lonely. You gotta keep going. So I was sitting down and I felt lonely. I talked to my friend Valentino, and he's like, "Okay, Junpei, when was the first time you felt loneliness?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, what kind of question is that?" So I'm like, "I don't know, but I'll meditate tomorrow morning about that."
That was a brilliant question that he asked you.
Right?
Yes.
And I meditated on it, and I was sitting down, and I was like, "When is the first time I felt loneliness?" It took me back to when I was in my dad's house after their separation, waiting for my dad to come home. And during this period of, like, I get off, school around 12:30, gets to my dad's house, and my dad comes home around between 7:27 and 7:30. It's always that in that window. And I am waiting and then waiting and then waiting, just binge watching Cartoon Network, just doing nothing but on the couch and watching this TV, like, mindlessly. And I felt so much air going through my heart. I felt like I was just only person on the planet. And so I found him sitting on the couch, and I sat down with him during the meditation session, right? And I go, "Hey, buddy, like, what are you doing? Like, why don't you just go out and play with your friends? Like, you still got like a lot of time." And he goes, "No, I'm just waiting for my dad." And I go, "Yeah, I know, but you have like 6 hours. You have 6 hours to play, and you can play as hard as you want. You can still come back, and your dad won't be there. Like, just go play." He goes like, "No, no, no, it's okay. I'm just gonna watch this TV." And so I had this dialogue going back and forth with him, and I finally asked, "Why are you staying here? Why are you here waiting for your dad?" And he goes, "Because it's my fault. It's my fault that my parents got separated. It's my fault that all this thing happened." And that was breakthrough moment for me. And till that moment, till like a couple years ago, I always thought the divorce of my parents were my fault.
Wow.
So I wish going back, my parents would have told me that wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
Boy.
Made us cry.
Yep. I know. Like, oh, but yeah, I don't have anything to say about that. But I think you're giving some really good advice, though, is I think as parents, we oftentimes want to shield our kids from big girl and big boy problems, and how kids internalize that is so vastly different because their minds aren't as developed as ours are. And they always tend to blame themselves because that's all they know.
Right.
Well, and that's interesting though too, as we talk about how to help people, right? Is you were able, by quieting your mind, to go to a place and identify where you needed to be healed. And some people really don't like therapy, don't like talking about it. And in order to be healthy and in the right state of mind is to really find where that pain is coming from. What made you talk to yourself when you were in that meditation? What made you want to talk to that little boy?
I think, I've never been asked that question. Like, when is the first time you felt loneliness? And I'm like, I just went to that visualization of like because during meditation, that's something that you can do. It's being like, imagine that you are in this place, you're listening to the ocean crashing on the wave, like wave crashing on the beach, and da, right? So you can actually visualize yourself almost as if you are there. And so I did that, and I just saw myself sitting on the couch, and I wasn't the one who's sitting on the couch. I saw myself sitting on the couch. So I wanted to have a chat with him, and it was just natural curiosity too. I'm like, oh, he's there. Like he's pretty sure he's willing to talk to me. But I still think that I've never done therapy, but I still think there are many things that I haven't uncovered, and it can be healed, right? Not just this one is a example of loneliness, but everything else. Right. So I'm not opposed to therapy at all. I think people should go and talk about their experiences and like understand, because so often we make up a lot of stories in our head that is not even true. And just talking about it and like, oh wow, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and getting that perspective. But that was such a powerful story and experience that some people need therapy to go there, but you had that on your own. You had the meditation as the vehicle. So therapy or meditation. I just like the thought that what you explained is something that we can do. Anyone can do. You identified the feeling you felt in the moment, and you thought back to when you first felt it. And then you got really quiet and still. And that's when you were able to have that healing experience. That's amazing. I would love to, I love that we can share that with other people.
If I can share my experience, if I can share even, like things that people don't even share publicly, that because there's a lot of shame around it, right? If we can bring that light, if we can bring that, like insight to anybody, that just, to me, that's a healing. And
it goes back to what your grandmother said. We're all brothers and sisters in this world.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can share and the more that we can connect and bring that authenticity and intimacy into relationships, the healthier we'll all be.
Yeah. I think that, the idea that everyone is connected, that's always been so meaningful to me. When in a professional context or even a personal context, my brain cannot process meanness, mean people, mean-spirited behavior. We might have to edit this out because I'm going to sound really stupid, but yeah, I don't understand how somebody can do that. If we're all connected, how could you be so mean? And especially I see that in real estate, right? You see that people are so maybe ego driven or financially driven at the expense of human lives and what's in the best interest of that client that you talk about, who had ended up short selling both properties. But yeah, I think that's great. I love that your mission is the mindful realtor in San Diego. And I love that that's, really your mission statement is to bring mindfulness at that professional level, because we all need that reminder. How do you define that to someone? If you were standing up in a conference and you're going to say, this is what I stand for, this is what I want to bring to this group, what would you say? What does that mean?
I've asked that question many times. What is mindful anything, right? Like, what is mindfulness? It's just being aware, period. Mindfulness is to be aware of your emotion, other people's emotion, what is happening and what's not happening. And going back to the using that mindfulness, being awareness to come back to the present moment and what really truly matters at this moment. It's sometimes it's very difficult to speak with people when they have certain goals in their mind, especially when they're like financially driven. They don't hear anything, right? So they want to talk over you. They want to be the right person, and not the right person, but to be right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And if I were to speak in front of stage, I would probably say mindfulness is a tool to come back to the present moment so that you can be aware of the situation and what is most aligned with the highest vibration, which is love.
I love that.
I've never said that before.
I love it.
Well, now it's recorded.
Yep, you'll be quoted and recorded. I think that stillness and that ability to observe even your thoughts too is just so helpful and transformative. Like when you're talking about the retreat you went on, you're just with your thoughts. You're the observer of your thoughts. This is where I feel like I wish we could craft a class or something for young people, for kids, because I know sometimes they hear so many buzzwords so many times that it gets diluted. Don't you think, Andrea? Like, I remember my kids were younger. They're like, oh, we're having a mindfulness moment at school. Blah, blah. So it was lost on them. It was lost on them because I think became this tagline rather than the real true experience on on what they're doing. But I feel like for
Right.
so many of our kids who have anxiety, well, certainly anxiety,
ADHD.
that, yeah, it's such an important tool to be able to pause. I think they have no pause. And that's the first thing, is just where you find the pause to stop,
Right.
be
I
still.
even think in depression, when these kids are in a place of like this depressive, not sad, but like really in this depressive state, is taking a moment and redirecting their thoughts. Anxiety is kind of this, like this flitter flutter, like a hummingbird type thing I see. And I see depression as almost the opposite of that. It's like this slow piece, but your mind still isn't focusing on what is.
Yeah.
Right? It's just focusing on other things.
It would be interesting to ask a young person with depression or anxiety, if that's realistic for them, I think
Right.
sometimes depression zaps out any motivation. So then you're not likely
and
to.
anxiety zaps out any reality, not reality, but like their mind just goes so fast that they can't focus.
Yeah. I think breathing is so important for.
Or jumping in the ocean.
Or jumping.
Well, nature. Yeah. I think like I for child or like for kids, if I had if I can go back to when I was really going through a hard time, right? Like abusement from my brother, and financial challenges with my mom and all this stuff. I think I didn't even think about reaching out for help, and I think if I can go back, I would probably appreciate it as someone that is like not normalizing the experience, but like really like listening to what's happening in my life, and like just normalizing the experience of like, you get anxiety, right? That's normal for you. Like I do too. Like you like you might be going through financial challenges. A lot of people do. I think just then I think depression happens, or no, the depression happens, but like, yeah, I guess depression happens when they think there's no more options, like I got bullied in the classroom, which happens a lot of time in Japan. I also got bullied, and I almost felt like this 30 people in the classroom were all against me, when there are like billions of people in the world.
Right.
Well, that
That's
was my option, right? So like, if I can go back to talk to my child self, I would probably want to normalize this situation, even though it wasn't really normal. But just talking about it and like, oh wow, like I've actually heard somebody that went through that as well. That just plays to hear, and this podcast probably will help massively.
We hope.
We hope so.
So if somebody normalizes that, the validating, what does that make you feel when somebody validates you?
I think when someone validates me, I don't feel like I'm alone. I feel like I am normal, because when you are going through, and also I see this in like a lot of teenagers, like there's a lot happening outside of their control, which is like their hormone stuff, right? They start to like go through the puberty, and you just don't really know what is really happening. Hold on one second. She's my sister. She just slams the door and
your sister's here?
She's like my sister, not biological, but
we're all brothers and sisters. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. She just moved here like 2 months ago. Anyways, so when someone, going back to like when someone validates me, right? I think he make me feel like I belong to many, instead of like I'm alone.
Oh, I like that. That is so, what a great explanation. I've never heard that. That's lovely.
Yeah. And just when I was going through like this hormonal like puberty stuff, I was just didn't know what I was saying and what I was doing, but I wanted to do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. and if there was a like a mentor that is directed my energy towards something else instead of being destructive, like, all right, I'm gonna take you to surfing, I'm gonna take you to nature, I'm gonna take you, like, let's go for a run or something like that, would have been probably very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jumpei, if somebody's listening and wants to try meditation for the first time, how can you give some wisdom on how somebody can start that?
There's many tips. First tip I would say is, don't think about meditation as a tool that you use to get to a certain destination, because meditation is a practice. You can never be professional at meditation. Just like yogi, you will never be a master yogi. You are always going to be a practitioner. So when you start meditation, it doesn't matter if it's 30 seconds of silence or if it's 30 minutes. The fact that you are being mindful to the present moment already is a practice.
Mm-hmm.
So eating without cell phone, like talking to your friends without distraction, that's already very meditative. So I wouldn't stress about, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts in my head or things like that. I would, and if you want to do traditional meditation, which is to sit down and then meditate, I would probably play very calm music, calming music. Maybe it's from like Spotify or YouTube. There's so many, songs and musics out
Mm-hmm.
there that you can utilize so that you can actually zone out, and then shut the exterior noise. And, that's something I would do. And there are many guided meditations, apps, Spotify. There's so many. I'll probably use those and do it little by little. That way.
Okay, you're gonna see how much of a novice I am with this. Every time I try to meditate, I fall asleep.
Oh, that's great.
It is?
That's great. No, it's amazing.
I felt like a failure because I was like, I couldn't even get through it. I was asleep.
No, I fall asleep too sometimes.
Oh, you just validated me. Thank you. Thank you.
We've come full circle.
No, it's totally fine. Like, you fall asleep. That's what people think about meditation being like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting down, I'm sitting crossing my legs on the floor, and like
On your
I have
little
no
perfect
thoughts in
pillow.
my head. I'm levitating. Like, that's not how it is. That's not how it is. We all fall asleep. We all have thoughts in our head. And if you ask me, how could you not to fall asleep? Maybe I will say take guided meditation. One thing. Another thing you could
Don't sleep it. Don't lay down in your bed while you're meditating.
That might be the problem right there.
Sit
You
up.
said get comfortable.
Right.
Oh.
But a lot of people go to sleep with a lot of stress. So that's amazing if you actually fall asleep while you're meditating, because the intention of it too.
Hmm.
Wow, I'm feeling so good about myself right now because I tell you, I was like, I'm feeling a little insecure around the two of you with all your meditation. I'm like, I keep trying.
Well, and along those lines though, Andrea or Jumpei, how do you know if you're doing it? What would be what would be the measurement of I did it, I meditated?
Well, sometimes I sit down for 20 minutes and then making myself crazy with thoughts.
Yes, I do that too.
And oh my gosh, I get out and like, man, I cannot meditate today,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
Okay.
And that's completely okay. And if you think about food, if you think about, anything, it also, comes in and out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that, like I said, meditation is not a perfect meditation. If you
Mm-hmm.
can actually be like really, if I could say one thing, if you are into something really, you're doing sports, you're doing something really 100%, giving 100% of your energy, and you're not thinking about anything else, that's a meditation for me.
Yeah, like pickleball. I keep saying that's like a meditation. You can't think about anything when you're playing pickleball. It's just the
Right.
ball.
Well, I was just thinking about your question a little while ago, Emmy, where you said, or maybe it was just a comment, you were saying that, the kids, how do you get their buy-in, and they just think it's like,
Yeah.
just terms. Well, I was just thinking about what you were talking about with mindfulness, and this would work with kids that are younger than 11 maybe, but just taking them on a nature walk and having them point out the details of the leaves and of the bugs and of the, rocks, and just taking them through a very quiet walk where they're noticing everything would be a way to slip it in there, almost like you slip in broccoli or spinach into there.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.
I know. I'm feeling
She's getting it. I love meditating. I have, actually, I'm that doofus who has like this cute little Japanese pillow that I sit on. Actually, I got it for my son, but he went to college and left it home. So now it's mine. And the problem is I sit down to meditate and my dog thinks that that's playtime. So she's just licking me and licking me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just can't focus. And then I'll close my door and then she's on the outside scratching. So inevitably I have to figure out how to meditate with my dog Bacon. It's very distracting.
Maybe you could pet her, and that would be part of your meditation. And I'm stroking each and every one of her furs.
All right, I'll let her know.
Pieces of her.
Yeah, she'll love that.
And also, like, no, Andrea, I think you're right. I think focusing on one thing can be so helpful when you're meditating. And one of the easiest thing is breathing. You count your breath. You count your breath, 1, 2, 3, or like 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. It doesn't matter however you count it.
Mm-hmm.
Just counting and being aware of your breath, like, okay, that's the only thing you think about. It's so helpful. If you I live by the water, so I go to the ocean and I listen to the water. That's the only thing I'm listening to. It's like, really, my eyes are closed and my only thing I can hear is the ocean, and then focusing on the ocean sound.
Mm-hmm.
That is so helpful. Some people just looking at the candle, their eyes open, looking at the candle. One book I read, it talks about, the magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually burn something with it.
Right.
If you focus on one thing.
Really?
Right. So yeah, you know how you like under the sun you can actually.
Okay, now I
right. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
That didn't give you a context, but yeah, you can actually burn something with the ray of sunshine with the magnifying glass, right? If it's focused on one thing.
That's a great analogy.
So, right.
I'm gonna have to cut that out because I literally thought you meant that if you focused, that you would be able to burn something
with your laser eye.
I was like, really? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna look that up when we get done here.
That's why that retreat doesn't allow eye contact.
Oh my gosh!
You're sorry, flaming eyeballs.
I was like, what in the world?
Hey, crazy things happening in the world. Crazy things happening in the world.
Well, we hear about all of the benefits of these cold plunges, and I've done 2. And I know that there's physical components, but I can tell you, I can't think of anything when I go into a cold plunge.
Yeah.
So maybe your point of jumping into the ocean, especially the Pacific Ocean, would also be a place where you just can't really think.
Right. No, you might be right. You might be on the right path.
I don't know. I'm coming up with all of these good theories right now, but but I don't think when I'm in those. Like I just did one last week and I was like,
yeah, because you're just focusing on trying to breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
You really are.
Which I think is so powerful.
Yeah, you're forcing yourself to focus on breathing.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I love
Yeah,
this.
just focusing on one thing. That would be like my quick tip for like newer meditators.
Yeah.
And again, like I've been meditating for I don't know how many years, like over 10 years. I still get distracted.
That's so good to hear.
So,
Makes me feel so much better. Jumpei, we're going to have to do another one because I would love to talk to you sometime about the meditation that happens in yoga. I think.
Meditation that happens in yoga.
I think, yeah, and we'll cut this out, but Bikram yoga in particular. I teach Bikram yoga, and I could write.
Oh, wow.
I would write a whole book about
Beautiful.
what that mindfulness experience is like. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did. I did a lot of core power. It's not really Bikram, but I've done.
That's not very supportive. That's not very validating. I mean,
I got thumbs down.
No, Bikram, that the mindfulness experience in Bikram yoga is so unique. It's so unique. We'll have to chat about it another time, but
yeah. I want to learn about
this is amazing. I'm one of the biggest takeaways for me on a personal level is the reminder as a parent to speak more freely and share with my kids, especially because I know I'm doing it. There's a part of my life as we speak right now where I know I'm shielding some things because I don't want to make my kids worry.
Right.
And so my intent is good. And I've seen in past examples in our lives where I realize I had the best intent and they say, no, that actually caused more harm. We would have liked to have known X, Y, and Z. So thank you for reminding. Thanks for reminding me.
And thank you for sharing, because I go back to what we said earlier was you sharing is validating to others and allows them to feel comfortable sharing, or maybe not sharing, at least acknowledging they're not so alone in this world.
Right. And I think what, one last thing I want to say is that I think it's okay to experience whatever you're experiencing, but don't stay there. That's what I see my friends that used to hang out in my house, they had divorced parents and, they're still kind of doing the same thing. And they're not really evolved as a person. And I look at it and thinking, wow, like I wish you came with me. I'm not saying I'm better or worse. It's just, I think people lose hope in the world, and I just think that the more challenging your life is, the more interesting your life is. And I wouldn't want to watch a movie of this person growing up in this very wealthy family and had everything and did nothing and died, rather than like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to see, wow, wait, hold on, what happened next? And wait, what? On top of that, your life is just getting more interesting, and you build character as a person if you go through a lot of challenges. So like, I would want people to more embrace their challenges and thinking that it's hard to see when they're in it, but in the long term, when you come out of the tunnel, you look back and like, wow, did I go through that on my own? And who helped me? And who's going with me to the next level?
Yeah.
It's that like,
it's like yes and it's a yes and mentality.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the kids that are going through hard time and all this stuff, like, hey, I get it. I've been through it, and you can also do anything you want in the world. It just now that it sucks, but it shall pass.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Perfect
Thank
ending.
you very much. Yes.
Yeah.
We don't even have to say goodbye.
Thanks, Jumpei. That was amazing.
You're gonna hang up on me?
Actually,